Have you ever wondered what happened to the United States immediately after the Civil War ended? Picture a nation torn apart by a brutal and bloody conflict, now faced with the monumental task of stitching itself back together. This was the daunting reality that faced America in 1865, marking the beginning of a historic period known as the Reconstruction Era. This era, spanning 12 years from 1865 to 1877, was a time of immense transformation and change. The nation had to grapple with the aftermath of a war that had left deep scars, both physical and ideological. It was a time to mend the divisions, to heal the wounds, and to rebuild what had been shattered. But the Reconstruction Era was not merely about rebuilding infrastructure and economies. It was about reconstructing the very fabric of American society. The country was faced with profound questions. How to reintegrate the rebellious southern states back into the Union? How to redefine the status of 4 million newly freed African Americans? It was a time when America had to redefine itself, its values, and its future. And so the main goals of the Reconstruction Era were threefold. First, to bring the southern states back into the fold. Second, to establish and protect civil rights for the newly freed slaves. And third, to rebuild the war-ravaged southern economy. A tall order for a nation just emerging from the ashes of civil war. In the face of these immense challenges, the Reconstruction Era was marked by both significant progress and heartbreaking setbacks. It was a time of hope and despair, of change and resistance, of ideals and realities. It was a time that would shape the course of American history in ways that still resonate today. So, let's embark on this journey to understand the Reconstruction Era, a period not just of rebuilding but of redefining. A time when a nation had to pick up the pieces and decide what kind of country it wanted to be. A pivotal chapter in the great story that is America. Imagine a country divided with the North and the defeated South. This was the United States during the Reconstruction Era. A time of significant challenges and immense change. The nation, fresh from the ravages of the Civil War, was split into two distinct sections. The North, or the Union, had emerged victorious from the conflict, while the South, once the Confederate States, lay defeated and in ruins. The core aims of this period, spanning from 1865 to 1877, were threefold. First, there was the monumental task of reintegrating the southern states back into the Union. This was a delicate process requiring careful negotiation and compromise. The southern states, though defeated, still held on to their distinct cultural and social norms, many of which were in direct conflict with those of the North. The second aim was the establishment of civil rights for the newly freed slaves. With the abolition of slavery, millions of African Americans found themselves free for the first time in their lives. However, freedom alone was not enough. It was important to ensure that these individuals were granted the same rights and protections as their white counterparts. This included the right to vote, own property, and access equal opportunities for education and employment. The third and final aim was the economic rebuilding of the southern states. The Civil War had devastated the economies of these states. Plantations lay in ruins, cities were razed, and the once thriving agricultural sector was in shambles. It was essential to rebuild these economies and reintegrate them into the national economy. This was the starting point of the Reconstruction Era. It was a time of hope and uncertainty, of change and resistance. As we delve deeper into this period, let's remember the immense challenges the nation faced and the resilience and courage of those who navigated it. Who were the main players in this critical period, and what changes did they bring about? Let's dive in. The Reconstruction Era was shaped by several key figures, among whom Abraham Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant stand out. Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, played an integral role in setting the tone for Reconstruction. He envisioned a lenient, swift reinstatement of the southern states and the protection of newly freed slaves. Unfortunately, Lincoln was assassinated before he could see his vision come to fruition. It was then left to his successor, Andrew Johnson, to carry on Lincoln's policies. However, Johnson's leniency towards the South drew criticism and eventually led to his impeachment. Enter Ulysses S. Grant, the 18th President and former Union General. He was a champion of the rights of African Americans, and his presidency saw the passage of laws aimed at protecting these rights. Now, let's talk about the constitutional amendments that emerged during this time. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, officially abolished slavery in the United States. It was a monumental step towards equality, but there was still much to be done. The 14th Amendment followed in 1868. This amendment granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves. It also provided equal protection under the law, a critical milestone in the fight for civil rights. Lastly, the 15th Amendment, ratified in 1870, guaranteed that the right to vote could not be denied based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. This amendment was a significant stride towards political equality for African Americans. So the Reconstruction Era, shaped by the likes of Lincoln and Grant, saw the passage of landmark constitutional amendments that aimed to ensure equality and justice for all citizens. These were the significant milestones during the Reconstruction Era. But what obstacles stood in the way of these ambitious goals? It's important to remember that the path toward Reconstruction was far from smooth. The Southern states, despite their defeat in the Civil War, still held on to the antiquated notions of racial hierarchy. White Southerners in particular sought to maintain their social and political dominance, resisting the changes brought about by the Reconstruction policies. This resistance manifested in various forms. For instance, many Southern states enacted black codes, laws designed to restrict the freedoms of African Americans and ensure their availability as a cheap labor force. These laws imposed severe penalties for vagrancy, loitering, or breaking labor contracts, effectively establishing a system of quasi-slavery. In addition to this legislative resistance, there were also more overt acts of violence. Groups such as the Ku Klux Klan emerged during the Reconstruction Era, terrorizing African Americans and their white allies in an attempt to maintain white supremacy. Their reign of terror included lynchings, arson, and other forms of brutal intimidation, making the South a dangerous place for those seeking to exercise their newfound rights. Beyond the violence and legislative resistance, the South also faced economic challenges. The war had ravaged the Southern economy, with infrastructure destroyed and agricultural production severely impacted. This economic devastation made it difficult for the South to rebuild and for African Americans to establish independent livelihoods. Segregation also presented a significant hurdle. Despite the formal abolition of slavery, black and white populations remained largely separated in both public and private life. This segregation, both de facto and de jure, would persist well into the 20th century, serving as a constant reminder of the deep-seated racial divisions that the Reconstruction Era had sought to mend. Despite these hurdles, the fight for equality and justice continued. The Reconstruction Era was a time of immense struggle, but it was also a time of resilience and determination. The challenges faced during this period did not extinguish the hope for a more equitable society. Instead, they ignited a flame that would continue to burn in the hearts of those fighting for justice, setting the stage for the civil rights movements of the future. What lasting impact did the Reconstruction Era have on the United States? This is a question that has intrigued historians for generations. The legacy of this transformative period is multifaceted and profound, with ripples that can be felt even today. The Reconstruction Era, for all its challenges and shortcomings, laid the groundwork for the civil rights movements of the 20th century. The passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments during this time set legal precedents for equality and citizenship that would be invoked time and again in the fight for civil rights. Yet the era also left a legacy of missed opportunities and lingering racial tensions. The failure to fully integrate African Americans into society and to dismantle the deeply entrenched system of white supremacy in the South set the stage for the Jim Crow laws and the systemic racial segregation that would persist well into the 20th century. On the economic front, the Reconstruction Era brought about significant changes. The South had to grapple with the transition from a slave-based economy to a free labor system. This period also saw the advent of sharecropping. a system that, while intended to provide economic opportunities for freed slaves, often trapped them in cycles of debt and poverty. Furthermore, the Reconstruction era played a pivotal role in shaping the political landscape of the United States. The struggle between the President and Congress over the direction of Reconstruction highlighted the tension between executive and legislative powers, a dynamic that continues to play out in American politics. In the end, the Reconstruction era was a time of profound change, marked by both progress and regression, hope and disillusionment. It was a time when a nation sought to rebuild itself from the ashes of a devastating war and to redefine what it meant to be an American. And that, dear viewers, is the enduring legacy of the Reconstruction era. Stay curious and keep exploring history.